Hi, I'm Arslan, and I've added over 100 cars to the Denver market. So naturally, I've gotten a very good process down for purchasing cars, whether it is new or used or from a dealership or private party. So today we're going to go through that full process, and I'm excited to share all the ins and outs with you. So previously, we already talked about purchasing a car for the Turo platform, and we also discussed the process for figuring out what the best car that you can buy for the highest ROI investment would be. This is more of a general video it could apply to really anyone that's buying a vehicle, and this will be useful information. So once you're ready to purchase a car, whether that be for Turo or for your own use, this is my process on how I go about purchasing a vehicle. So let's start by going through the pros and cons of purchasing a new car versus a used car. So let's start with a new vehicle. So the pros of purchasing a new vehicle is you're gonna have, first of all, better financing options, and that's because you're going to be buying through a dealership. With new vehicles, lenders are more happy to lend out money for that vehicle because it has brand new everything, versus a used vehicle is a little bit more of a liability when the banks or lenders are looking at it. You also get, and this is actually a big thing, the manufacturer warranty. So once it first comes off the lot, you typically have a few years that everything on that car is covered by the manufacturer. You don't have to put more money into a warranty. It's just built in. That is a huge thing with buying new cars that you have to just look at with your purchase. Next, there's typically a little bit more room to negotiate the price. And the reason for that is there are so many replicas of that exact same vehicle that you're purchasing all over at different dealerships. So when you're looking at purchasing a vehicle brand new, you could say, hey, I'm looking at a vehicle at the dealership down the road. I'm looking at a vehicle in the next city over. And you can start pinning those dealerships against each other so that they're competing to get your business. Then we also have a pro as longer shelf life for Turo. So obviously this is kind of a no-brainer, but when you have a car with 0 miles on it, you're gonna get 5, 6, 7 years on the Turo platform renting that vehicle out, versus a vehicle that starts with like 80, 90,000 miles. You're gonna start racking on miles pretty quickly on these vehicles. So you'll get to the point where we start seeing some issues with the engine or transmission. No matter what car you're buying, something's gonna come up with a higher mileage vehicle. Then we also have here that there's actually less maintenance required. So because every single piece of that car is brand new, you're not gonna have to do, as frequent of oil changes. You're not gonna have to replace the tires anytime soon. Same with the brakes. So you're saving some money on that maintenance. Now, the cons to buying a brand new vehicle is obviously it's going to be the most expensive that car ever is. So as soon as you drive it off the lot, that car is depreciating pretty rapidly. So that's one thing that you need to calculate when you're figuring out whether new versus used is right for you. Look at the historical data on depreciation for that type of vehicle. Some models, some makes have lower amounts of depreciation over time, and we typically see that in the more reliable models because they can still sell at a pretty high ticket price later on as a used vehicle. So do some research on that when you're making this decision. And then the last con of purchasing a brand new vehicle is the negotiating process. So obviously you're going to be buying from a dealership, and these individuals that you're negotiating with are trained professionals. So this is literally their day-to-day job, is to sell you this vehicle at the highest price that they can. So that's who you're dealing with, versus if you're buying private party, you're going over to someone's grandma's house or some random guy's house and you're negotiating with them. They're not necessarily used to the negotiation process, so you can typically drop their prices pretty easily. What do you need to have prepared for buying a brand new car? So I actually went ahead and I made this into a list with check boxes. So if you would like to, go ahead and screenshot this, print it out, and just check off as you're going. So let's go through this. First of all, I want you to make sure that you have the car's market value figured out. And this goes for any car that you're purchasing. So go on KBB, that's Kelley Blue Book, or go on Car Gurus and figure out what the market value of that car is. So when you're purchasing the car, I want you to try your best to get the car below what the market value is, but especially try to avoid going very high over the market value. The next thing that you're gonna wanna go through is the consumer reports on that vehicle. When it's a brand new vehicle, there might not be as much data on it yet for the reliability metrics that consumer reports provides. However, you can look at previous model years and they're typically going to be around the same amount of reliability, barring some massive overhaul in how the car was manufactured. So check out the consumer reports on that vehicle and see what the reliability scores are. Then if you're buying this car for the Turo platform, make sure that you are doing your Turo calculator analysis on the vehicle, as well as crunching numbers on specific listings of similar vehicles. Next, I want you to figure out which dealerships have this vehicle in stock. That way you can start understanding who you can pin against each other and start those negotiations. Then before you even start the purchase process with a vehicle, make sure you know what your OTD, out the door price, is going to be. Now, an out the door price is going to be different from the sticker price on the car, because the sticker price isn't going to include extras in terms of how much they're charging for the dealer handling fee, how much they're charging for financing, things like that. The out the door price is how much you're paying in total for that vehicle. Forget the sticker price, forget everything else, just add it all up together, and that is the most important number that you can possibly have. So you need to know your budget. I want you to have a very strict budget when you're doing this, and don't go over it. You're setting a budget for a reason. Don't try to convince yourself into it if you know your budget is a certain amount. Then to drive the car off the lot and to test drive it, we're gonna need to make sure that you have insurance so that you can actually drive the vehicle. I want you to also get pre-qualified for a car loan. That way you can go into the entire purchasing process knowing what your APR is going to be. That way you're going to be better prepared for what your full on out the door price is going to be. All right, so once you have all of that ready, the negotiations begin. So I've kind of went through step by step on how you can negotiate the price of a new car. So first of all, pick out the car that you want. Call through all the dealerships in town and make sure you understand who has that car that you want. So if you're looking for a 2024 Toyota Highlander, make sure that you figure out exactly which dealerships have that 2024 Toyota Highlander that you want. If you want it in black, make sure you specify that. If you want a certain trim level, specify that. Then you're gonna pit them against each other. So there's a couple ways that you can do that. You could call them and say, hey, look, I'm interested in purchasing this Highlander. What is your price? I'm also looking at purchasing at this dealership down the road. I'm honestly just gonna go with whoever can give me the best out the door price. So that way they understand that now they're in a competition to give you the lowest price possible. Otherwise, you will not be moving forward with them. While you're on the phone with them, or if you email them, get the out the door price before driving over. So that way you're not negotiating as you go. You know exactly what you're getting into before stepping foot in that dealership. Don't go into a dealership knowing that they are starting over your budget. We always want to start within your budget and then negotiate down from there. So once you show up at that dealership, have them write down their out the door price for you. They can probably print out a full-on statement of what you're going to be paying and the total at the bottom. Once you get that piece of paper with that price on it, snap a photo of it and send it off to the other dealership. So that dealership is going to come back to you and say, hey, based on their price, we can actually do this for you. And do that as you're sitting there in the dealership. Just say, hey, I gotta go make a call. Hey, I gotta go text somebody about this purchase. That way you can just simply have the response from the dealership, walk up to the sales rep and say, hey, look, this is what the other dealership is doing for me. What can you do? And so they're gonna look at that, come back to you with probably an even lower price, and then just rinse and repeat that process until you get as low as possible. So at some point, you know, the other dealerships or the dealership that you're currently at is going to probably tap out and say, all right, I cannot go any lower than what you have right here. That's when you know you've hit the lowest price possible. Now, as you're going through this back and forth negotiation, don't be afraid to literally stand up and start walking out the door, because 9 times out of 10, that sales rep that you're working with is going to say, hey, you're not going to really leave over $100 difference, are you? And then a great response to that, which works every single time, is just turn it right around on them and say, are you really going to let me leave over $100? And they'll probably sit there and be like, oh, I have to talk to a manager. Let me figure this out for us. And then you've gotten them down that extra amount. So once you've gone back and forth and you've gotten the lowest price that you possibly can, the last piece of negotiation that I'm going to recommend to you. So as you're sitting there ready to sign the paper, this is your last opportunity to get one last thing out of that sales rep. They're so excited you're about to sign, and then you say, oh, in fact, could you throw in a roof rack as well? And they'll say, oh my God, let me go talk to my manager. Or you say, in fact, I love those t-shirts over there. Can you throw one in for me? Or I'm really hungry. Could you buy me lunch? This has been a long day. You can definitely get one last thing. If you're just hovering over that signature line and you say, in fact, let's go ahead and add this. So that's going to be your last piece of negotiation. So once you've done this with a sales rep, they're probably going to understand that this is your process with any car that you purchase. So if you're looking to grow your fleet to more and more cars, just go back to that one sales rep that you worked with. Just say, hey, look, it was great working with you last time. I would love to try to get the same type of deal on the next car. And if they come back with you as, hey, that's a one-time thing, can't do that again, then go back through the process. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and text the dealership down the road. And they'll probably be a lot more lenient off the bat this time because they understand what you'll go through to get that price. So this is really establishing your baseline with the dealership so that in the future, it's going to be even easier, even better for you. So keep that relationship as soon as you have gone through all this. Now, the last thing that you can negotiate is the interest rate and the warranty. So you've gone through, you've gotten the price of the car as low as possible, you've gotten your one last free thing. So now you'll be in the back room and you'll be discussing, finance and warranty options with their finance team. So your interest rate is going to determine a lot about how much your monthly payment is. So make sure that this financing team is doing the best they can to negotiate on your behalf with the lenders that they have access to get your rate as low as possible. The cool thing about going through a dealership is they deal with different lenders all day, every day. And a lot of people don't understand that you can actually negotiate these rates, which is gonna be a huge money saver at the end of the day. So if somebody comes back with 6% APR, then ask your financing individual, hey, can we try to bump that down at all? And maybe you guys can adjust the loan term, maybe you can adjust, who you're working with. There's a lot of things that you can fudge around, and they're typically going to be trying to work with you the best they can on this. So then the last thing here is going to be a warranty that you can negotiate. So a lot of times there's going to be a warranty built in to the purchase of a brand new car. However, there's other coverage that you might be able to negotiate to get added to that vehicle. So there's glass coverage, there's electronics coverage, there's a ton of different coverages that you can look at. So try to see what you can add, or if they're charging you for a warranty, see how inexpensive you can get that price. So now let's talk about buying a used car. Typically, we're gonna be dealing with private party with used cars. They do have a lot of used cars at dealerships. However, I'm gonna touch more on the private party end of things because the process for buying a used car at a dealership is going to be very similar to the process for buying a new car at a dealership. So let's touch on the more private party end of things. So for the pros and cons of buying a used car, number one, it's going to be cheaper, obviously. And now that's for good reason, because if you think about it, that car is going to have a lot of mileage put on it. It'll potentially have issues. It's harder to uncover issues. So you're paying the difference because of that depreciation. You're also negotiating with untrained individuals. So rather than a sales rep at a dealership who deals with this every single day, you are directly negotiating with an individual who might not be an expert in that area. Now, the other cool thing about buying a used car, which a lot of my clients have used this strategy, is that you can actually take the title, go straight to a bank and refinance the vehicle, which means you're going to be paid out for your equity in the vehicle, right? So say, for example, you bought a car on the used market and it was purchased below market value for, let's say it was $16,000 that you purchased for, and the market value was $20,000. You could go to a bank and have them pay you the market value as essentially a loan. So now the bank has the title in hand and you have $20,000 when you only paid $16,000 for it. So you just got that $4,000 difference right in your pocket. Now, one of the cons is that obviously you could be buying a limit. Like there's no telling why that individual is selling the vehicle. Even though you are going to try to uncover every single thing about that vehicle, you're going to ask them, why are you selling it? Have there been any issues? Do you have the maintenance records? You could still be walking into a bad situation. Now, number two is you're dealing with complete random strangers online. You don't know their history. You don't know whether they've been scammers in a previous life. Now, the financing options are also going to be a bit tricky and you're gonna have worse rates. Now, that's because there's not as many lenders that wanna deal with a used car. When you're dealing with a new car, it's brand new parts, all of that. But this is a used car, used parts. Banks and lenders don't love putting their money up for a used vehicle as much as they love it for a new vehicle. So that means that if you do get financing on that car, you're typically gonna be looking at worse rates. So when we're looking at a new car, right now I've seen around the 3 or 4% APR range. But if you're doing a used car purchase, I've seen it in the 6, 7, 8, 9% range with a new car. It's also going to be a little bit more time consuming than buying from a dealership. That's just because you have to track down where that individual lives, figure out what a good time to meet is, figure out how you can get a pre-purchase inspection situated. So there's a lot more variables to it when you're purchasing a used car. It's a lot more likely that you're going to see multiple cars, find issues with them, not move forward with them, and then you're finally going to find the right car after a few tries. So be wary of those cons. However, the fact that it is potentially so cheap is a huge pro. So don't rule out used cars by any means. So I went ahead and I prepared this checklist for you on what to have ready for purchasing this used car. And this is a huge thing with used cars. Obviously, you don't need this on a new car because there's no history, but we want to check the Carfax. If you don't check the Carfax on a car that you're purchasing, I think that's crazy. The Carfax is going to tell you if it's been in an accident, if it has a salvage title, if it has mileage rollback. So if somebody literally went into the dashboard and rolled back the mileage, you would find that out on the Carfax. Now, you would also be able to see maintenance records if the shop that they're working with is reporting to Carfax. A lot of times people will use smaller mechanic shops that don't report to Carfax. So it's not necessarily a red flag if they don't have maintenance records on the Carfax. However, if they are on there, then that is a huge plus. So secondly, we want to make sure that you've checked the KBB, the Kelley Blue Book, and the car values for the market value. This will give you a good range of what you should be expecting to pay for the vehicle, and it should probably give you a target to hit when you're looking at purchasing the vehicle. For example, you might be looking at a vehicle and it says the market value is around $8,000 or $7,000 to $9,000. So you want to be as low as you can get. If it's typical to purchase the vehicle at $8,000, try to get it for $7 or $6 or $5. Next, I want you to make sure you check the consumer reports. This is especially important on used cars because when you're looking at consumer reports, this is going to tell you what are the trouble spots on these vehicles and does it have trouble spots that you need to be wary of. So if you look on that consumer reports and it says, hey, the engine has issues a lot, or the transmission has issues a lot, or if it's even a vehicle that you want to move forward with. Because if you're looking at the consumer reports and it's saying that everybody's having engine problems or transmission issues, then go ahead and just skip out on that vehicle entirely and look for a more reliable vehicle. If that vehicle is being purchased for Turo, again, make sure you're checking the Turo calculator for its earnings and you are analyzing Turo listings to make sure you understand how much money you could stand to make on that vehicle. This way you can start calculating your ROI. For example, if you're purchasing a vehicle for $10,000 and you can make $10,000 in a year on that vehicle, then you're probably going to be scoring on that. Then lastly, I want you to make sure if you are financing this vehicle that you get pre-qualified for a car loan. When you find the right car, you can act on it as fast as possible. So a lot of people will find the right car and then say, hey, thanks so much. Like, I love this car. I'm ready to buy it. I just need to go get financing. And the individual with that car, they probably have it at a very low price if you're ready to purchase it. And they're going to have a ton of other people offering them cash for that vehicle. So they're not going to love the idea of sitting around and waiting for you to figure out your financing. So please get pre-qualified if you are buying the car. And then lastly, this is kind of a no-brainer, but make sure that if you're buying the car cash, you have enough cash and you have the access to the cash so that you can buy it as soon as you're ready to purchase it. Now, where do you search for a used car? So two options that I really like are Facebook or Craigslist. These are going to be the cheapest options that you can find, and there's pros and cons to each of these platforms. So let's start with Facebook. Facebook is great for being able to understand who this person is that you're buying from. Because they have a Facebook profile, they're probably gonna have a history of posts that they've made. So you can understand if this person is a bit sketchy or if this person looks put together. Honestly, tell a decent amount about that individual from their Facebook profiles a lot of the time. So if I'm looking on here and I'm seeing a Toyota Highlander that I wanna buy, and it is some sketchy looking guy that looks like he does drugs and just got out of jail, maybe I don't want to buy that car, so proceed with caution. Now on the flip side, if it's, somebody's grandma or grandpa, that's probably somebody that just wants to not deal with the whole negotiation thing. They just want to give somebody the car. They don't really care too much about what they're making on it. They just want to get a little payout. So that's somebody that I would say, all right, I want to try to get a car from this individual. So that's obviously a very cool thing about Facebook. Now, there's also a lot more users on the Facebook marketplace than on Craigslist from what I've seen. So you're going to have a lot more options of potential vehicles to purchase compared to Craigslist. Now, the great thing about Craigslist is typically the individuals who are putting their cars for sale on Craigslist are going to be that older demographic who has cared for their car and all of that. So you can a lot of times find a really good deal on Craigslist versus Facebook. The thing with Craigslist is you don't necessarily know who you're actually purchasing from. This individual will not be showing their face on the Craigslist ad. They're simply going to have an email that you can email or a phone number that you can contact. So be wary with Craigslist because it is random people, but you can typically tell from a listing whether it is a legit listing or not. So that is something to be mindful of with Craigslist. The thing that I really like about Craigslist though is you can filter out salvage title vehicles versus on Facebook. I don't believe they have that feature at this point. So I really do like that because we want to rule out salvage vehicles at all costs. And so here is how I negotiate the price of a used vehicle. So I've gone ahead and I listed out a few steps for you to go through, but very important, I just want to point this out over here. You want to make sure you're smiling, make sure you're being kind, and make sure you're being punctual when you're dealing with the seller. Nobody wants to sell a vehicle to someone they don't like. They want to make sure that their vehicle is going into the hands of somebody that is a good person or will take care of the vehicle, because people get so emotionally invested in their item that they want to even make sure that the next person that has it is treating it well. It's also very unlikely that a seller is going to drop their price for somebody that they don't like. So when we're talking about negotiation, if you are being their best friend and you're smiling and being as kind as possible, it'll be way more likely that you get a good price on that car. So keep those three things in mind as we're going into this. When we are buying this car, the first step is going to be reach out to them and inquire about the vehicle. The cool thing about purchasing a car on Facebook or Craigslist is that you can sit there behind your computer, have a prompt ready to go, and then just copy and paste it, copy and paste it, copy and paste it. So when we are trying to get a good price on this used vehicle, we do kind of play the numbers game a bit. Don't expect to go on Facebook, find an exact vehicle that you want to purchase, and that's going to be the one that you're negotiating. That gives you one car to choose from, and it's very possible that that one car is owned by somebody that wants to sell the car way above market value, and it's just not going to be a good investment. We want to only deal with individuals who will sell it to us below market value. So sit there at your computer with a prompt that says something along the lines of, hey, I love the look of this car. However, would you consider $8,000? That seems to be more in my budget range. So you'll get a bunch of people saying, nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do that. And then you get some people that get back to you and they say, hey, that does sound good. Or, hey, I can't do that low. However, I can do this. So you're really just sitting there sending off a ton of text messages and just seeing what sticks. Obviously, you're not going to inquire about cars that you don't want, only send text messages about cars that fit within your criteria. Once you figure out which cars or car you want to go further with and go to the next steps with, before meeting with anybody in person, it is crucial that you FaceTime them or video call them. Somehow jump on a call with them where you can see the car before going out in person. A lot of times you're going to be driving 30 minutes out of your way there, 30 minutes back, wasting an hour of driving just to find out that, there was something on the car that you did not like. So if you can FaceTime them, this is crucial. Have them walk around the car, show you everything that you'd be looking at in person. That way, if you're seeing that the car is filthy, that way if you're seeing that the car is dented or has things on it that you weren't expecting, you didn't just waste your time going all the way out there. This also is going to be your next step of potential negotiation. So if you've gotten them down to, that $8,000 mark that you've wanted, now when you're looking at the car on FaceTime, you can say, hey, I didn't see that in your ad. I don't know if that $8,000 is going to cut it for me. Can we drop the price by maybe another $500 to, compensate for this issue that we see? So once you've gone through that FaceTime and you're feeling good about this car, your next step is going to be to go in person to see the vehicle. And this way you're going to have the opportunity to test drive it, actually put your eyes on the vehicle and find if there's anything else that you don't love about it. Now, obviously, if you're going to check out the vehicle, I want to make sure that you have a pre-purchase inspection scheduled prior to even going out. However, when you get there to check the vehicle out, you need to make sure that you're giving a glance over if there's any issues that you can find yourself, even though you might not be a mechanic or anything. I want you to go and see if the windows roll up and down, see if the AC works, see if there's any cosmetic things. So you should be checking, all of the easy things that any common folk can figure out if there's an issue with. If you find anything, that's going to be another step of negotiation. So, hey, look, I didn't know that the floors were so stained. I'll probably have to get a detail on the car. That's going to be like $200 out of my pocket. Do you think you could come down to this price? So now we've negotiated them already. One time over text, one time over FaceTime, one time in person. You've already dropped their price 3 times. So it's probably pretty low at this point. Now, it is important that you have scheduled a pre-purchase inspection to bring the car to. This way you can figure out if there's any more serious mechanical issues that you didn't catch. So that mechanic is gonna be able to get under the car, tear it apart, plug in their scanner to see if any codes come up, all of that stuff. What I would highly recommend is that when you schedule this pre-purchase inspection, be as straightforward with that mechanic as possible and say, hey, look, I'm scheduling this inspection with you to try to get the price down as much as possible. So please just look through this car with a fine-tooth comb and figure out anything that I can get the price down on. So once you bring that car to the pre-purchase inspection, they're gonna be on the same page as you and they're gonna pay extra close attention to anything that could cost you money, and you can use that as negotiation. So once you have that pre-purchase inspection done, I want you to again negotiate the price with the seller. This is gonna be your last step to get the price even lower based on the mechanic's findings. They're always gonna find something, and you can use that to drop their price even more. So using this process, I've literally purchased a car that was listed at $10,000 for $6,000. It works like a charm because they get invested in you being interested in the vehicle because you've already gone through these 5 steps. They're gonna want to sell you the vehicle. They're gonna want to get the car out of their hands and you can drop their price very drastically. So once you figured out the vehicle that you're going to be purchasing, there are a few ways that we can look at actually buying that car. Now, I've listed right here the new cars and used cars and different ways that you can purchase these. Obviously, with a new car, you can purchase that car in just cold hard cash or just the same, a cashier's check. You can also get a car loan on that vehicle because there's gonna be so many different loans out there for you to choose from because it is a brand new car. And then lastly, this is something that we'll look into further is the special financing on that vehicle. I'm just gonna jump over here and we're gonna quickly search financing deals on new cars. And so this is gonna pull up with this cars.usnews.com site. And so looking here, this is going to give me for March 2024, which is this current month, the best new car purchase deals that they have been able to find. So if you have a pretty broad range of vehicles that you're possibly looking at, you can just jump on here and see if any of these vehicles fall within that parameter so you can get these special financing deals on a vehicle. So if we look here, it's going to give different offers that certain manufacturers are giving out. So there is a 2.9% financing for 36 months on certain Hondas. The Ford Mustang has a 1.9% APR for 36 months. A Subaru Outback has a 1.9% financing option for 48 months. And then this is actually a pretty good one. And then Nissan has a 0% for 72 months on their 2024 Aria, which is an electric SUV. That could be a killer on Turo in Denver. So make sure when you're looking for a vehicle, if you're trying to purchase brand new, check out these special financing deals and see if it makes sense to you. Then if we're looking at used cars, obviously we can do cash, cashier's check, wire transfer, auto loan from a bank or credit union. Then we have 3 more options that I've seen people use. However, I'm gonna put a big asterisk next to these because I don't love them. So number 1 is PayPal, and then Venmo and Cash App. My problem with these is, first of all, you're going to have certain limits to how much you can pay per day on these certain apps. Now, PayPal, I think, has the largest limit that I've found, while Venmo or Cash App, or one that I didn't list, Zelle, you're going to be limited to $3,000, whatever, per day to send to an individual. The other thing about these transactions is that after the money's been sent and received, this can be disputed on behalf of the buyer. So they can say, go to their bank and say, hey, didn't mean to actually have this go through, and dispute it and get all the money back. So if a seller is pretty savvy and understands that, they will very possibly not even allow you to purchase the car that way. So there has to be a lot of trust involved if you are using one of these 3 resources or apps. That's kind of all of those on how I would typically be paying for vehicles and how I have paid for vehicles in the past. There's also going to be certain creative options that you can look at for purchasing that vehicle. So first of all, you could look at refinancing the vehicle after the fact. Like I mentioned earlier, if you bought the car at a very good price, say below market value, go to the bank with the title for that vehicle and say you purchased it $4,000 below market value, you're going to hand them the title, and then the bank is going to take the title into their possession and pay you out for the market value of the car. So a lot of clients of mine have used this strategy where they will purchase a vehicle with us below market value, go straight to a bank, and then get all that money in a loan, and then have that money to go do whatever they want with in the meantime while the car is making them money. They simply have to make those payments just as if they got a normal auto loan. So that just puts equity in their pocket. Now you can also, if you are a homeowner, use your home equity line of credit. So you're just pulling money out of the equity in your house so that you have extra money to deal with. This is something that, again, I've had certain clients of mine use this. So they literally take money out of their house, put it into an investment like a rental car, and then they make money on that rental car. Then I have certain people that have mentioned this one to me. I don't have any experience with it, but apparently you can use a crypto wallet to purchase a vehicle and get 0% APR on that purchase. So if you have a bunch of money sitting in crypto, maybe this would be a good option for you. However, with the variability with crypto, maybe it wouldn't be the safest bet. I would personally be pretty nervous about, the crypto price plummeting and I get kind of screwed over in that sense. And then there's the BRRRR strategy, which is actually something that I've kind of been using since day one of getting into the car rental space. Now, the BRRRR strategy is something that is typically more discussed in the housing and real estate area. However, this does apply also to cars, and especially rental cars. This stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So essentially you would be buying a car that needs some work. Say it needs an engine. So you buy it at a very low price. You renovate the car. So you repair any of the issues on that car, which makes it a functioning car again. A lot of times you can find cars with some issues that can be fixed at a lower price. And then once you pay for that fix, you're well below market value because you put some sweat equity into it. Then once the car is up and running and ready to hit the road, rent it out as soon as possible. That way you're getting money right in your pocket as soon as it is ready to hit the road. And even a strategy that I've used is if the car needs a certain fix, I'll go out and I'll take photos of the car before it's even fixed, throw it onto Turo, and in the meantime, I'm getting bookings on the car. So once it is completely done, now I already have bookings coming in and I can get it on the road very quickly. Then when you refinance it, you're gonna pull out all of your equity on the car. And now that you're making money, you're getting cash flow, you're going to repeat the process. So that is another great strategy that you can implement on purchasing a vehicle. Two last things when you're buying a vehicle that you want to make sure that you do. So first of all is a bill of sale. So this is essentially like your receipt for the purchase. That way, if something comes down legally where you have to prove that you did buy this car from the individual, then you have this in your back pocket. Something else you can do with this is go and get it notarized. That just makes it that much more official. I'm assuming that you're probably going to be dealing with a bank at some point during the process. So try to meet up with this individual at the bank and get a notarized copy of the bill of sale so that you have all the proof you need of the purchase that you made. Then you will have the title. So if you've never seen a car title, it's going to vary from state to state on how exactly it looks, but this is just a typical title. By looking at this, just make sure that there's no glaring issues on it. So most of the times, if it's a clean title, it's not going to have any statements that it has a salvage or branded title, anything like that. This title, for example, has a notation that it was a flood vehicle. If you're looking at the Carfax, you should know this already, but just double check that there's no glaring issues on the title. The other thing that I want you to make sure you check is that the VIN number, so right here we've got this sample VIN, make sure that VIN number matches the VIN number on the vehicle. There have been people in the past that have gotten scammed because somebody has a title and they sell them a vehicle and it's not at all matching. Make sure that you're getting a matching title to your vehicle. So just cross-reference that. Then the seller is going to be responsible for filling out their information. You'll be responsible for filling out yours. So typically that's just going to be name and signature from both of you. Titles are very sensitive in that if you mess up in certain spots, the DMV or MVD will not allow that title to be processed. So be incredibly careful when you are filling out this title. The other thing to look for is whether your state requires a notarized title or not. Some states will be very lenient on this, like Colorado. You just need to have them sign it and you sign it and then you're just good. Other states require a notarization of the title in order to sell it. So just make sure that when you're purchasing a vehicle, you're not missing that step, because it would be the worst to have to track down the seller, not be able to get a hold of them after the fact. So just be mindful of that. Now, the last recommendation I'll make for you on the title is I honestly will try to fill out as little amount of information as possible before going to the motor vehicle department. So I want to make sure that I'm obviously having them fill out all the information that they need to fill out, but I'm going to fill out as little information as possible, because when I go to the DMV, if I had made a mistake filling out the rest of the information that I needed to put on there, I'm just screwed. However, if I'm filling it out right in front of the MVD employee, they're going to be able to babysit me and tell me if I'm doing anything wrong. So that's why I try to come in with the least amount of information filled out as possible, because then they're going to say, all right, sign here, and sign here. That will help a ton if you're prone to making mistakes. Now, some people do still owe money on their vehicles. And for those vehicles, I would say, proceed with caution, because this can be an annoying process. So if you're looking at two comparable vehicles, one they owe money on and one they don't, go with the one that they don't, because it's going to be an easier process. If they do owe money on the car and you want to buy that car, then get in touch with their lender or go directly to the bank that they used for the loan with them and express to that lender or bank that you will be buying the car and you want to have the title sent directly into your hands. So a lot of lenders, when a car is paid off, they will send the title directly to the individual who owns the car or got the loan on the car. But what you want to do is make sure that they are sending that title to you, and you don't have to go back to the seller after they've received the title and go about it that way. That seems like a massive headache to me, and something that you want to avoid. So make sure that you are going to that lender, you're going to the bank with the seller, so that you're authorized to make those decisions with them, because that seller is going to have to give their approval for anything like that to be processed. All right, well, thanks so much for sticking around through this whole thing. I know this was a lot of information, but I'm hoping it was very helpful, and good luck out there in the car market.